Or are they not contenders anymore? Because they've had some losses recently that have definitely led to people questioning whether or not they are still contenders. And are the 76ers, or should the 76ers shut down Joel Embiid for the season and basically, save it for next season, I guess if you want to say. So let's talk about that. So first, let's start with the New York Knicks. Now, the Knicks are a team who have, obviously gotten a lot better really fast in the last couple of seasons. Jalen Brunson has been awesome. The acquisition of OG Anunoby has made them, very, very good defensively. Mikal Bridges, now they got Cat. We know what this team, is looking like, right? And I am one of the people who do believe that the Knicks are contenders as currently constructed. Obviously, including Mitchell Robinson coming back, because he's a big part of what they do. Mitchell Robinson is one of the top offensive rebounders and, paint protectors and, shot blockers in the league. And so not having that presence definitely hurts the Knicks because, like I said earlier in the season, especially when Precious Achiuwa was out, they were really relying on Cat to be, their Mitchell Robinson, while also relying on him to be that offensive guy. And we know Cat is not a top-tier defender. Now, he's been much better since he's been with the Knicks, but, he's not going to be Mitchell Robinson. So to start the season, there were some struggles there defensively, especially at the front court position. And now that Precious is back and, everyone seems to have found their, their rhythm and stuff like that, it's much better. But obviously, they still need Mitchell Robinson because they need his rim protection. They need his offensive rebounding. They need him. And so, including him, assuming that they are fully healthy, right? I still do believe the Knicks are championship contenders. I believe this team can make the NBA Finals. I think this team can beat Boston. I know a lot of people don't think that, but I really think they can because I just feel like they match up well with Boston, especially now that they have Cat, because the one thing that you could say maybe was that they didn't have anybody to offset Porzingis, right? Because Porzingis, we know, can shoot the three and stretch the floor, and he's, like a unicorn, as they called him, right? But now they have Cat, who can also stretch the floor and shoot the three, right? So, they have someone to offset the advantage that the Celtics had over them and, a lot of teams. And so that advantage is technically gone, right? Because it can be an even wash there. And you would even say Cat is going to put up more numbers than Porzingis because he's not the number one option. So with that being said, I do believe the Knicks can beat the Celtics. I really do. I think they can beat the Cavs because they have done it before. Obviously, it's a different team. I am not doubting this Cavs team. I have been saying for a few years now that this Cavs team is coming. They're nice. They're loaded. They just picked up DeAndre Hunter, who, if you watch this page, that's been my guy since he was drafted. I've been rooting for him. I've always rooted for him to, do well in the league. And I always thought he'd be a very good player. Obviously, very good defender. That's what I was going to say. But he's a really good two-way player. And he's an awesome pickup for the Cavs. And so I'm not doubting the Cavs or the Celtics. They can beat the Knicks, right? But I'm saying that I believe that the Knicks can also beat them. I don't agree with the notion now, just because they lost to the Cavs, that they are not in the same tier. That's basically what people are saying. They're saying the Knicks are not in the same tier as the Celtics and the Cavs. And I just disagree with that because we all know playoff basketball is completely different from regular season basketball. And one thing we know is that Jalen Brunson is going to show up and show out in the playoffs. And he's going to be awesome. And he's going to make the team and everybody around him better. And he's going to get 40 point, I'm not going to say triple doubles, but he's going to go crazy and hit all the clutch baskets. And in the playoffs, you usually would expect that the games are not going to be blowouts, right? I know that happens sometimes, but you think that in the playoffs, the teams are more, technically evenly matched because it's just supposed to be the best 8 teams in the East and the best 8 teams in the West, right? Technically. So you would expect the teams to be going back and forth and it to be an even, matchup. And so with that being said, I expect them to have close games. And who do I trust and who do I know is going to hit the game winners down the down the stretch? I know Jalen Brunson will. And so if it's going to come down to that, where we have to determine who's going to hit the game-winning shot, who's going to hit all the clutch baskets, I know I trust Jalen Brunson to do that. And so that's why I'm saying, like, I don't see any problem with saying that they could beat Boston. Just like the same way is like they could lose to Boston. That's what I'm saying. Like, I just don't see them, I don't see them not in the same tier. I think they're in the same tier. Whether or not you think that the Celtics are better is a different story, but I don't think they're like not, I don't think it's like tier 1 Boston and then like tier 4 the Knicks, right? Like, I just don't agree with that. And so with that being said, I do think the Knicks are still contenders, and I do think that they can go to the NBA Finals. Are they going to win the championship? Are they the favorites? You know, obviously that's really hard because you have OKC out in the West, and you obviously have the Celtics who are the reigning champions. The Cavs, we just discussed, look very nice. And you have so many teams in the West who, the West is loaded, like anybody can come out of the West. And so I'm not saying that they are going to win the title or they are the favorites, but I say that they definitely can compete and come out of the East, and I would not be surprised if they came out of the East. So that's my opinion on that. And then we go to another team in the Eastern Conference who had high expectations for this season, and that is the 76ers. And the 76ers are definitely in a weird spot right now. Like, they just lost tonight, I believe, against the Brooklyn Nets, and they had their big three. They had Joel Embiid playing, they had Maxey, who went crazy, actually. I think Maxey had 31 points or he had 41 points. Like, he played very well. And then Paul George played as well. So, like, their big three technically played. So, like, you would be like, oh, they should just blow out the Brooklyn Nets, who are in, like, rebuild mode, right? But the 76ers have had their struggle this season. Joel Embiid has been in and out of the lineup, and even when he's there, he's just, like, doesn't seem like he's fully healthy. And so that is the question that people are, you know, now asking is, like, should they shut Joel Embiid down for the season and just try to get him ready for next season? And then the other questions are, should they trade Joel Embiid in the summer and kind of just, you know, build around Tyrese Maxey, who has been amazing, you know, gets better every single year and is showing this year that he could be a number 1 option potentially. Like, we have to obviously see it because he's always had Joel Embiid with him and stuff like that. But, like, he's leading the way right now. Like, he's really playing so well for the 76ers. And so it's really a question of, do they think that the Joel Embiid era is over? Do they think that he can get healthy for next season? Because the report was a couple of weeks ago that Joel Embiid said that, I believe he said, he needs another surgery and a lot of, you know, off time in order to get right. Like, completely right for next season. Like, basically he's saying his knee needs another surgery, and that's the only way to actually heal it. And so that's definitely not something that fans or the 76ers want to hear because, you know, he's had knee surgeries, and that's definitely a scary thing to hear, that he feels like he needs another surgery. And I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying, like, if he feels like he needs another knee surgery, that is definitely something for the 76ers organization to be thinking about. Like, what is our long-term future with Joel Embiid? Because he is signed for the next 4 years, I believe. They just gave Paul George the 4-year max, and we know Maxey just got his extension as well. So all of their big three are signed for the next 3-4 years, like under contract. Like, they don't have to worry about that. But they have to decide now at this point, maybe this summer, do we think, in terms of them, like, do they think that next season that everybody's going to be healthy, that Joel Embiid will finally be healthy again and just be healthy for the whole season? Will Paul George, you know, fit in better in terms of, like, a lot of people are calling out Paul George right now because obviously his numbers are not what they were last year and stuff like that. And he's clearly, in my opinion, the third option, technically, like the third scoring option on the 76ers. And so a guy like Paul George, who is used to being the number 1 option, number 2 at worst with the Clippers, you know, with Kawhi and stuff like that, but, like, even then Kawhi was out a lot, so he was really the number one option a lot. It just depended. But like a guy who has always been a focal point of the offense, and it's not that they're obviously not trying to get him involved, but I'm saying like a guy who was that guy. Like he's been an all-star, stuff like that. It's a hard adjustment period. And you have to remember, kind of funny enough, not really funny, but like going back to yesterday's live stream, we were talking about Victor Wembanyama, and we were talking about how, the blood clot thing, and we hope he heals up soon, but a lot of people thought of Chris Bosh, right? Because he obviously, his career ended because of the blood clots in his legs. And so, just to bring up Chris Bosh again, when Chris Bosh was on the Raptors and stuff like that, he was looked at completely different than when he was on the Miami Heat. He was looked at as the third option on the Miami Heat. And I'll have to look at his statistics, but I'm pretty confident to say that his numbers were not what they were on the Raptors. Like, I'm like 100% confident, but, I always give that 1% just in case. But like, the point is, his numbers were not what they were when he was on the Raptors, because they weren't going to be, because he was the number 3 option on the Miami Heat, technically speaking, because you got LeBron and you got D-Wade, right? So if he's the third option, think about Paul George now. Paul George is now the third option. Is he going to put up 25 points per game being the third option? I mean, technically, I guess he can. Like, he has that capability, but there's only one basketball to go around, and you also have to get other players involved too. Like Kelly Oubre is there. You got to get other players touches, because nobody wants to just stand on the floor and not shoot the ball ever and not touch the ball. And so I do feel like Paul George is in this weird stage where he's trying to fit in and figure out what his role is and where the best shots are for him and when to take shots and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's an adjustment period that most players have of his caliber when they go to a team and they are becoming a second or third option rather than a first option. And I just feel like it happens all the time. Like, I don't think this is anything that people should be surprised by. Like, even when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors. Now, obviously, because Kevin Durant and Steph Curry were in their primes and they're just so sensational, their numbers were still great. But we all know that when Kevin Durant first went there, Steph Curry was, kind of taking a back seat to KD in a way sometimes, because, they were just deferring to each other and just trying to figure out how to fit with each other and how to make it work. And then eventually, they figured it out and it was fine. But because Steph's numbers were not, as low as some of Paul George's numbers are now, people weren't as concerned, I guess, if you want to say. But like, technically speaking, the year prior to Kevin Durant, Steph Curry averaged 30. He had a 50-40-90 season. He was the unanimous MVP. He averaged 30 points per game. Like, he went crazy. And I don't remember what he ended up averaging for the whole season. But if you go back and look at I'll say the first 2 months of the season, like before January, before maybe around Christmas time, when he got to that point, again, I don't know statistics-wise if his numbers, I know he wasn't averaging 30, but I don't know how much lower his numbers were. But the point is, like, he might have been averaging like 24 points per game at that time. I'll have to go back and look. But because 24 points per game is still a good number, people weren't saying what they're saying about Paul George. So that's my whole point, is that Paul George is not at the same stage of his career that Steph Curry was when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors. So that's, one difference. The other thing is, Paul George is also on a team where they're all trying to figure it out because they don't even get to play together. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are so many ins and outs. Like I said, Joel Embiid is in and out of the lineup. Maxey has been there for, a good, like, most of the season. He's been out a little bit, but not much. But Paul George himself has been out. So, like, it's not just him trying to fit in. It's also him trying to fit in and play with the guys. Like, you have to actually play the games to be able to figure out where you fit best with these people. And so because he hasn't really had much of that opportunity, because I don't know how many games they've played together at this point, but I remember maybe like a week ago when they had a national televised game, I think they had only played like 14 games together maybe. maybe less, whatever it wasn't a ton. And so not being able to actually have reps together on the court in the game, real time, is going to make it even more difficult for Paul George to figure out his role because let's just say Joel Embiid is not there, then he's the second option to Tyrese Maxey scoring-wise. And so he's going to get used to being the second option. Then when Joel Embiid comes back, and we know what Joel Embiid is when he's healthy, a literal MVP, not just a candidate, a winner of the MVP. So that guy, healthy, is averaging 30 points per game. So it's not like Joel Embiid comes back and he's just, coming off the bench and averaging 10 points and it's like an easy adjustment for Paul George. We're talking about literally incorporating a guy who is either the number 1 or number 2 option. Like, I feel like people are starting to say Maxey's the number 1 scoring option, but like, I feel like at this point, they're still featuring Joel Embiid as the number 1 scoring option, even if he's not scoring as much as Maxey is. And so you're talking about incorporating an MVP candidate and telling Paul George that he has to adjust to that. And so I do think everybody in the situation, obviously, will figure it out eventually. But I understand why people are concerned, but at the same time, I do think that there's an adjustment period that no one's giving them grace for. Like, no one's giving Paul George the grace for. But at the same time, I also don't think his numbers are going to be as high as they were when he was on the Clippers or, the Pacers back in the day and stuff like that, because his role is going to be different here. So I think people have some unrealistic expectations for what they think Paul George should be averaging. I do think there are some realistic concerns that people have. I'm not saying everything that everybody's saying is not accurate. And there are some, some ways that he's not shooting the ball or shots he's not taking and stuff like that I can understand why people are saying, certain things about the way he's playing. Like I said, it's not that he's doing everything perfect and it's not that he can't improve and do some things better. I'm just saying, I feel like I just feel like there are some unrealistic expectations on what people are thinking Paul George should be doing and what he actually will end up doing when he fits in properly. So that's my opinion on that. I think they'll figure it out eventually if they, keep this team together. But the real question is, are they going to make a trade this summer? Are they going to end the Joel Embiid experiment and build around Tyrese Maxey, which would obviously mean moving Paul George too, because, I guess you could keep Paul George, but I feel like that doesn't really make sense. He fits with Tyrese Maxey, but I don't know. I don't know if they would trade Paul George as well. That's a good question. I'm not actually sure. I'll have to think about that. But thank you guys so much for joining this live. I hope you enjoyed this live stream, and see you soon.